Have you ever seen someone who could make even the hardest hearts pause? Wondered Emma, a curious 7-year-old with bright brown eyes, as she skipped along the cracked sidewalk of a small town in Tennessee. It was a warm spring afternoon, and the sun poured golden light across the rows of modest houses. The smell of freshly cut grass mingled with the distant scent of coffee from the corner cafe, the kind of place that felt both familiar and mysterious to anyone who walked in. Today, Emma was excited, not because of the candy in her hand or the playground ahead, but because she had a story she couldn't wait to share, a story about her father's tattoo. Little did she know that innocent excitement would ripple far beyond her imagination, and into the lives of people she had only seen in passing from afar. Her father, John, was a quiet man with rough hands, the kind that hinted at years of hard labor and resilience. He had served his country in ways few understood, leaving him with memories etched deeper than any photograph could hold. But today, it wasn't about war stories or labor. It was about a symbol, a tattoo on his forearm that had always fascinated Emma. It wasn't flashy or colorful. It was simple, almost humble, yet it carried an unspoken legacy. That same tattoo would soon connect her to a world she never imagined existed, a world of motorcycles, rumbling engines, and the intimidating presence of the infamous Iron Vipers Biker Club. The Iron Vipers weren't the kind of people you crossed paths with casually. Known throughout the South for their fierce loyalty and temperamental outbursts, they ruled the highways like kings of a dark, misunderstood kingdom. Their leather jackets bore the emblem of a venomous snake coiled around a dagger, a symbol of power and intimidation. Everyone in town had stories about them, stories meant to warn children, scare off troublemakers, and keep curiosity safely at bay. Emma, naturally inquisitive, didn't care about warnings. She was driven by something deeper, something only a child's intuition could sense. It started innocently enough. Emma's mother, Claire, had taken her to the local park to swing and play, while the smell of barbecued ribs from nearby streets teased their senses. Emma's attention, however, was drawn to a group of men at the far edge of the park, polishing their motorcycles. Their engines gleamed like obsidian under the afternoon sun, and their presence carried a weight that made even birds hesitate mid-flight. One of the bikers noticed Emma staring and gave a slight nod, a motion that made her both nervous and thrilled. Children were curious, after all, but curiosity could be dangerous in this part of town. "Mom, look!" Emma exclaimed, tugging at Claire's hand. "That man, his tattoo, it's just like Dad's." Claire turned and followed her daughter's gaze. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment she felt that old, familiar anxiety, the kind that creeps up when the world suddenly feels too big and too dangerous. The man she now looked at, standing tall with a leather vest, rugged face, and eyes that seemed to pierce right through the afternoon haze, froze. His eyes widened, and his hands stilled, brushing against the chrome of his bike. Emma, oblivious to the tension, bounced excitedly. The moment was electric. The Iron Vipers, usually loud and commanding, fell silent. One of them whispered something into the ear of another, a message that passed like lightning along the line. Emma's small voice, innocent and unknowing, had cracked a code they had all recognized, but never expected to hear in such a setting. Her words, "My father had that same tattoo," reverberated through their world of tough exteriors and unspoken rules. In that instant, years of loyalty, secrecy, and hardship came to an invisible thread binding Emma's family to theirs. The man with the tattoo, known to his peers as Marcus Viper Kane, walked slowly toward Emma and Claire, each step measured, as though the earth itself had become a stage for a performance he hadn't rehearsed in decades. The air between them was thick, filled with unspoken questions, memories, and a sense of fate that could not be ignored. Emma clutched her mother's hand, her innocent curiosity unshaken by the tension that would make most adults turn away. Claire, sensing the depth of the moment, instinctively shielded her daughter, yet she felt a strange reassurance in Marcus's calm demeanor. I don't understand, Claire whispered, almost to herself. Why are they? Her words trailed off as Marcus finally reached them, the emblem on his vest glinting like a warning and a promise simultaneously. His eyes softened as he knelt slightly, coming to Emma's level. That tattoo, he said quietly, almost reverently. Your father, he was part of something. Something we all believed lost. Emma tilted her head, intrigued. She didn't fully grasp the weight of the words, but she understood that they were important. Marcus then extended a hand, not threatening, but inviting, bridging a gap few would dare cross. The bikers behind Marcus shifted uneasily, murmuring among themselves. Some arms were crossed defensively, while others flexed subtly, as though ready to react to any perceived threat. But in that moment, the legacy of the tattoo carried more weight than anger, suspicion, or pride. It carried the essence of human connection, a bridge between past and present, between innocence and experience. Emma's simple declaration had reminded these hardened men of something they had long forgotten: kindness, empathy, and the invisible threads that connect strangers through shared histories. Your father. Marcus's voice wavered slightly, betraying a vulnerability rare for someone of his reputation. He was a man who stood for more than anyone knew. That tattoo, it was a symbol of loyalty, compassion, and a promise to protect. You carry that in your words, in your presence, even now. Emma blinked, processing the enormity of the statement. She felt an odd mixture of pride and curiosity. The afternoon sun cast long shadows on the pavement, yet for the first time they didn't feel ominous. They felt like a stage for something extraordinary. Claire's heart raced. She had lived her life quietly, raising Emma with love, protecting her from the harsh realities of the world. Yet here they were, standing before people who could have easily been threats, now frozen in awe of a connection only a child could bridge. Emma's innocent remark had pierced through the veneer of toughness, unlocking a story of shared humanity, reminding everyone present that real power lies not in fear or control, but in compassion, in recognizing the unseen battles others face. Marcus straightened, looking at his club members. Their usual bravado was replaced by introspection. The weight of memory and respect settled over them. The Iron Vipers, notorious for their ruthlessness, were now caught in a moment of quiet reflection. Emma's voice, small but unwavering, had reminded them of a truth they had buried under years of anger, pride, and misjudgments. That strength is measured not in intimidation, but in acts of kindness, no matter how small. And in that quiet moment, something shifted not just between the bikers and the mother-daughter pair, but in the very air of the town itself. The legacy of a simple tattoo, the echo of a father's principles, and the courage of a little girl had begun to weave a new story. One where connection, compassion, and understanding reigned over fear and assumptions. Emma, unaware of the profound impact of her words, simply smiled and whispered, "Dad would have liked you all." Marcus felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in years. The Iron Vipers were still watching, some with skeptical eyes, others with expressions softened by memory. The quiet that hung over the motorcycles was not just silence, it was reflection. Emma's innocent words had ignited something long dormant in their hearts. The weight of their past deeds, the mistakes, the lost friends, and the lives they'd touched without realizing now pressed against them, demanding acknowledgement. Marcus cleared his throat and addressed the group. "We've been hardened by the world," he began, his voice steady yet tinged with emotion. "But sometimes the world reminds us what we were meant to be." He gestured toward Emma and Claire. "And tonight, we're reminded by someone smaller than any of us, someone pure. That little girl just reminded us that strength isn't intimidation, strength isn't fear. It's compassion. A murmur ran through the bikers. Some nodded, some shifted uncomfortably, and a few glanced down at their tattooed arms as if seeing them anew. Emma, oblivious to the depth of the moment, smiled brightly, her small hand clutching her mother's. Claire looked at her daughter with pride swelling in her chest. She had always known Emma possessed a unique kind of courage, the kind that could move mountains or, apparently, command the attention of a feared biker club. One of the younger members of the Vipers, a wiry man named Ricky, stepped forward. He looked hesitant, unsure if speaking would break the fragile spell Marcus had cast. Does this mean your dad? I mean, he was one of us? His voice wavered. Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes misty. He was one of the few who carried our code with honor. He believed in protecting, not hurting. And he trusted the people he called family, in ways we've all forgotten. Emma tilted her head, curiosity shining in her eyes. Was he really like you all? She asked innocently. Marcus chuckled softly. No, kiddo, he was better. He didn't need to prove himself. He just lived rightly. That's what mattered. The simplicity of the answer, delivered with heartfelt conviction, made Emma nod as if she understood perfectly. And in that nod lay the bridge between childhood innocence and the profound lessons of a life fully lived. The afternoon slowly gave way to evening, and the sun dipped behind the trees, painting the sky with streaks of crimson and gold. Marcus motioned for his club to gather around. The Iron Vipers, usually a wall of defiance and intimidation, now formed a circle, their heads bowed slightly in respect. Emma's small voice spoke again. You all seem different than I thought. There was no fear in her observation, just honesty. The bikers exchanged glances, some smiling faintly, others laughing quietly, realizing that for all their reputation, the truth of who they were could be softened by one child's perspective. Claire's heart raced as she watched. Her life had been ordinary, filled with the daily struggle to provide, to nurture, to teach right from wrong. Yet here she stood, witnessing something extraordinary. The human capacity for change, catalyzed by simple recognition and empathy. Emma, she whispered, pulling her daughter close. Sometimes, people just need to be reminded of their better selves. Emma leaned into her mother's embrace, feeling the strength and warmth that came from generations of love and wisdom. Marcus reached into his vest pocket and pulled out an old photograph, faded with age. This, he said, handing it to Claire, is your husband and me, years ago. We swore loyalty to each other, to our code, and to the people we promised to protect. Seeing you today, it feels like he's here again, reminding us what we're meant to be. Claire took the photograph carefully, her eyes misting as she saw her husband smiling, younger, filled with the kind of unshakable honor that defined a life well lived. Emma peered over her mother's shoulder, sensing the importance without fully grasping the depth of the story. The bikers began to talk among themselves, sharing stories of John, of moments lost and regained in memory. Laughter mixed with sighs of nostalgia, and Claire realized that beneath the leather, the tattoos, and the reputation, these men were capable of love, of loyalty, of compassion, just like her husband had been. The Iron Vipers were no longer merely symbols of fear. They were a living testament to the idea that true wealth lies not in money, intimidation, or possessions, but in the kindness and connection we offer to others. Marcus turned to Emma and knelt again. You know, he said softly, you've given us a gift today. Not many can do that. Most people see us and only see the surface. But you reminded us of what really matters. Thank you. Emma's eyes widened, absorbing the gravity of the words. You're welcome, she said simply, her innocence lending power to the sentiment. And in that simplicity lay a truth stronger than any tattoo or club emblem could ever represent. The night settled in, quiet but alive with the hum of engines and whispered conversations. Claire and Emma prepared to leave, but Marcus called out, "Wait, before you go." He handed Emma a small leather bracelet, engraved with the same emblem as the Viper's jackets. "So you'll always remember that courage, kindness, and connection, they're more powerful than fear." Emma's face lit up. "I will," she exclaimed. Claire's eyes glistened with tears as she realized that her daughter had, in a single afternoon, touched lives in ways she couldn't have imagined. As they walked home under the star-studded sky, Emma held the bracelet tightly, her mind buzzing with questions and excitement. Claire followed silently, reflecting on the extraordinary lesson her daughter had taught, not about fear or judgment or appearances, but about the true value of human connection. In a world often hardened by cynicism, anger, and misunderstanding, Emma had shown that innocence and compassion could bridge even the widest divides. Back at the Iron Viper's clubhouse, Marcus and his members gathered again, their usual bravado tempered with reflection. Stories were told, laughter shared, and an unspoken promise made to live with more kindness, more empathy, and more courage to honor the legacy of those who had come before. The night air carried the echoes of engines and laughter, but beneath it all was a quieter truth, that real strength lies not in power or fear, but in love, loyalty, and the ability to see the humanity in others. And so, the little girl's words continued to ripple through the town, through the biker club, and through the hearts of everyone who heard the story. One tattoo, one innocent declaration, and one child's courage had reminded a world hardened by experience that true wealth is measured not by what you possess, but by the kindness you give and the connections you nurture. Emma's father's legacy lived on not just in ink on skin, but in the hearts and actions of those he had inspired. As Emma drifted to sleep that night, bracelet on her wrist, she whispered into the darkness, "Dad, I think they'll be okay now." Claire kissed her forehead, holding back tears of awe and gratitude. Somewhere in the distance, the Iron Vipers rode slowly down the quiet streets, their engines soft, their hearts lighter, and their spirits renewed, reminded that the simplest acts of humanity can leave the deepest impact.